Hey there, welcome to Spice Files. I'm joined once again by DFB. How are you doing today?
Hello, Mike. I'm doing okay. I've taken a book from the page from the book of Aaron Steele, and I am freshly shorn, which feels a little weird for the first time in more than 5 years. But
That's always a weird word when I hear it. I don't
shorn,
know.
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, desperate times, right?
yeah, fair enough. Yeah, totally understand. So today we're going to talk about the Havenwood Battleground spicy decks, right? That's an event that you ran. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So this was a one-day webcam event, the likes of which were completely impossible, I think, before the pandemic and stay-at-home orders and all that. But now, all these events are cooking. There's a variety of different structures, but we've been able to do a few of these one-day events in the community. This one, I think, was the biggest yet. We had 96 players from all over the country and the world. Kind of an early
Nice.
start for you West Coast guys, although we did have a few very, very hardy souls join from California, and
Mm.
I know Cam Wall called in from Oregon. We had a guy from British Columbia,
Mm.
so
Yeah, I think
um,
Cliff played in it too,
yeah, Cliff
from
from
the
the Beast Blade.
Beast.
Yep,
Hmm.
for sure. Yeah, I mean, we played 7 rounds of straight Swiss, and it was kind of a Spike Fest slobber knocker up at the top. We had a bunch of like workshops and ATOG lists and stuff like that do pretty well, as you might expect.
Hmm.
But we also had a fair amount of spicy things going on at the middle and bottom tables. So I actually, the file that I sent you when I was going through the deck photos, I think I flagged like 19 or 20 different decks for us
Yeah,
to
there are
dig into.
quite a few. Yeah, for sure.
So we held like a informal kind of voting in the old school webcam group on Facebook, and we have narrowed the list down to a top 8 for Spice that I thought we might dig into.
Hmm. Awesome. And we can jump right into the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a deck by Jonathan King. The name of the deck that I see on your on the file here is 79 card Hate 80. Am I
Uh,
reading that?
yeah, it's either Hate 80 or Hat 80. Oh, Hallows. I have no idea. um, and it's an 80 card deck, but in his like upload note, he said that it was 79 cards and he was waiting for a Bayou or something. I don't know. So
Okay,
I haven't actually taken the time to count just to verify whether it's 79 or 80 cards.
gotcha.
Um, but I think the point here, I love this deck. I mean, this is the kind of archetype, and there are a lot of like brews where to do all the fun things that you want to do, there's no way that you can keep it to 60 cards, right? And I think he just kind of said, you know what, we're going for it.
Yeah.
I want all of my enablers. I want all of my reanimation targets. I want all of my combo pieces and rewards, like stuff like Onulet and Cabal Ghoul.
Mhm.
He just wants all of it. So there's like lots of little interactions throughout this pile, and enormous mana base
Yeah.
to support everything that's going on.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of like little minor interactions between things, I mean, because there's obviously a reanimation theme going on, but you've also got the whole Rook Egg Diamond Valley thing, and now obviously you can sack a guy and then reanimate him again, that kind of stuff. Especially the things like Trike or Tetravis, it seems pretty good doing that sort of thing
Hmm.
with them, and then just getting them back again. I also like there's like just random one-ups too that kind of fit with the other cards. So, there's one Taunos' Coffin in here, just to go along with those Trikes and Tetris, and kind of do that little combo. There's even a transmute artifact in there. You can sack your Onulet or a Mox or whatever and just turn it into a Trike.
Hmm.
All those one-ups up in a couple one-ups up there in the upper left-hand corner that are kind of interesting to me.
Yeah, the upper left-hand corner is actually what I've been staring at
Mhm.
for most of this conversation already. I do want to. So I was trying to figure out what the fourth card in is. That green mana. It's a Concordant Crossroads, I believe.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and so I want to call attention to a 4 card combo in this deck that may slip under the radar for people because it is very, very obscure. Jeff Liu actually told me about this one time. Um, so if you have a Concordant Crossroads in play, um, and you begin your turn with one Hell's Caretaker in the graveyard and one Hell's Caretaker on board. Hell's Caretaker can't target itself. It has to target a creature already in the graveyard. So you need both caretakers to do this. But Hell's Caretaker, its ability to bring a creature back from the graveyard is not triggered at the beginning of the upkeep. You just simply have to activate it during your upkeep. Right. So if you've got the Crossroads, all your creatures have haste. You have one in the yard, one on the board. In your upkeep, you can infinitely cycle sacrificing and animating the caretakers amongst themselves. So if you do this an infinite number of times, during your main phase, you have to make sure that you either have Cabal Ghoul in play or cast Cabal Ghoul at some point during your turn. And then at your end step, the Cabal Ghoul will gain an infinite number of +1/+1 counters. Nice. And you will be left with an infinite ghoul. That's all it takes. I mean, I like this. I like the 5th card in the combo, which I don't think I see in here, which is Sword of the Ages, because then you can immediately deal the infinite damage with the sword, just for the icing on the cake.
Well, at the very least, in this version, if you have a Diamond Valley out, you just gain infinite life, right?
You could gain infinite life, indeed. Yep. So that's another way to do it. If you prefer to live forever instead of kill your opponent, and you're not really worried about decking yourself with infinite life because you have 80 cards.
Right.
So
awesome.
it's the best of all possible worlds. You heard it here first. If you guys didn't know about Infinite Ghoul in 93-94, the cat's out of the bag. Go forth, go forth, and I have gotten that combo off once in my history of playing. Nice. I remember exactly when and where it was. I was at a brewery here in my neighborhood with a friend of mine, Steve Hartford, who either didn't have much going on in his deck or just was really curious to see what was going on in mine, and sat there and let me combo off. And for that, I will always be grateful.
That's awesome. Yeah, we decided to go through these in reverse order, and I know how many votes he got compared to other decks, and I imagine had people really known that, I think it would have got more votes. To be honest, it's just not obvious necessarily when you just first glance at the deck, right?
I actually didn't realize it until literally right now when we were recording. I didn't have this prepared. It kind of took me figuring out that was a Concordant Crossroads and then looking around the rest of the list to have all that fall into place. But I'm glad that I discovered it. I'm sure there are some other really funky nooks and crannies in here. And I don't know. This must have been a blast to play. With 80 cards, you literally have no idea what's going to happen. Any given game. And I'm glad that this one made the cut because it's pretty cool and it's got a lot of things going on.
Yeah, certainly does. Okay. All right. So moving on, we have Jason Burberry playing a big pink disc deck is the title of this. If you have some thoughts, I'll let you go first.
I think there's just some interesting pieces in here. Stuff like the Dwarven Armor and Resurrection, and cards that you don't normally see, like Uthin Troll, the red storage land. I actually kind of like the storage land with the discs. I think that's an interesting. That's just kind of an interesting interaction. Like after blowing up the world, you can have some more mana to play with or something. I don't know.
Yeah, you just dump the Shivan into play afterwards or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I love the idea of casting Ball Lightning with Resurrection. Ball
Lightning. I wonder how many times that happened.
I hope it. Well, yeah, right. Because without, does he have like enablers to put it in the graveyard? Not really, right?
Well, it's Dwarven Armor is the one way, right?
He can sack.
For him, you tap and discard a card to put.
Oh, that's what it does.
Either a plus O+1 counter or a +1+O counter. Like you get to pick, I think.
Yeah, that's a
Uh,
horrible card and maybe the worst reanimation enabler in old school. But it
yeah,
works.
I mean, but it's one of the few things where you actually decide which card you discard.
Yeah, true enough. True enough.
Because all the other weird random things just make you discard a card at random
Well,
because
I mean,
choosing.
Jalum Tome you get to choose.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Mind Bomb you get to choose. But yeah, no, I see your point.
Yeah. Like
Um,
I'm thinking of like all the weird things like whatever there's some kind of coral thing that like pumps your guy, but you have to discard cards at random, and I don't know. Just there's a lot of like costs that are discard a card at random
random, yeah.
rather than
That
choosing a
effect
card.
comes up a lot more in old school than normal Magic, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really hope he cast Ball Lightning for 2 white. I think that's
Mhm.
a pretty sweet line. I don't know. I also just like to see Goblins of the Flarg in general, especially like outside of the context of all in like Goblin decks with Goblin Grenades and Goblin King and stuff like that. I think it's a card that stands on its own. The red Scrib Sprites, as I like to call it, because the
Yeah.
evasion comes up a
I
lot,
was.
especially when you're Blood Mooning people.
I was thinking the red flying man, but yeah, sure. And I guess it's closer to a script sprite since it doesn't have the Arabian Night symbol on it.
Doesn't die to
Uh,
bottle exactly.
yeah. Although it then begs the question of whether this is the red script sprite or if Goblin Gloom Brigade is the red script sprite. Um,
I think it's closer to Scrib because evasion is always on.
yeah.
Balloon Brigade is just so clunky. You just don't have the red available as much as you might think. And those decks are usually pretty red hungry. Like you need a red for every burn spell you're casting. You need a red for every goblin you're playing. You need a red for your grenade. You need 3 red for ball lightning. That kind of thing.
Hmm.
So it is actually sometimes tough to do that. And under blood it's a lot easier, obviously. And I'm hoping he got a fair number of people throughout the day with a couple main deck blood moons. There's some good stuff on the board. I always like to see Immolation. I think the card is good. I think the card is underplayed.
Hmm. Yeah,
Uh,
it is quite good. I also really enjoy, I've been doing this lately as well. I enjoy having one Spirit Link in my sideboard. It just randomly does stuff and it serves multiple purposes. And there's not a lot of ways to gain life in old
yes,
school in general, like you have Divine Offering and Spirit Link and Ivory Tower, I guess, if you're on that kind of deck, but that's situational, right? You have to kind of build around that a little bit. But like there's just some games where you win because everyone has no cards in hand, and then you just jam a Spirit Link on your Serendib and just go to town, and
totally.
and maybe they 2-for-1 you eventually, but you gain 12 life, or whatever.
Yeah, exactly,
So
exactly.
anyway, it's a card that I like seeing. I think people should try it a little bit more because it's actually it's a creature enchantment, so everyone just tends to not want to play them. Kind of this is where I was going with the having immolation as well. I think people just usually just shy away from those cards, and
Yeah,
but he's actually got two Spirit Links here.
yeah.
um,
No, I think they're great. I mean,
mhm.
this deck in general is just a nightmare for Serendipity to see, right?
Yeah,
Like the
yeah, for sure.
three main deck mazes. Um, yeah, I don't know. This is just like it's clearly got some strong cards in it and commonly seen cards, but it's not exactly your father's like red white mid range deck, and I thought it was cool enough
Yeah,
to showcase.
yeah, very cool.
All right.
Okay. Next up, we have John Patton. The deck title is Sarpedia After the War 3.
Yep. Which John, I know. So John is from the Baltimore scene. I know he goes down to Dice City to play every now and again. He is a Fallen Empires devotee. He loves his gold bordered cards, as you can see. I
I
mean,
can see that, yeah.
and I love the choice of sleeves also to kind of gold borderify even the non gold bordered cards. I he has been tooling on this deck for a long time, and the threes I think a reference to like main version number basically.
Sure,
Uh,
yeah.
and he's destroyed me with this deck. It has a lot of it has an inevitability kind of engine that might be hard to sort of see at first glance, but like there are a lot of really surprisingly strong interactions, and Yeah, just a lot of weird little things to kind of unpack that
Mhm.
I think people might dismiss out of hand, but it's a lot more than meets the eye.
Mhm.
Um, Also, bonus points for using the Sacklands, including the Havenwood Battleground, which was the namesake card of the of the event
Yeah, for sure.
that we
I
were
wonder how
playing.
many people actually had that in their deck. Probably not very.
Probably not very many. Although I think the Sacklands are an interesting cycle. I think
Mhm.
there is something to, especially like the white one. I feel like with land tax, you could probably use more than never, which is
Mhm.
how much it's currently played. Um, I think I think the black and blue ones also have their uses. Not as sure about green and red, but
Mhm.
it's a cool cycle,
Yeah.
and one that could I don't know, could bear some exploration by more people.
Even with Winter Orb, there's a tiny bit of play to that because you can untap it as your land. You kind of get two lands, right,
Yeah.
for the turn.
So basically, what he's got going on here are a bunch of thalids, a bunch of like sap rolling producers, and ways of getting value out of having a bunch of sap rolling tokens around.
Mhm.
Um, that the Hell's Caretaker puts in a ton of work once you have sap rollings on board, and you can just basically turn a token into a card every single
Yeah,
turn.
into an Urnum.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
exactly.
or whatever. Yeah.
Um, he's turning tokens into cards. He's also turning he can turn tokens into life with the Elvish Farmer. I mean, like the
Mhm.
survivability is pretty unreal. He can turn that night soil turns uh, turns creatures in the yard into other tokens, that can be used for other things.
Mhm.
There are just like a lot of funny little things going on here. And then he's got some other value, obviously fatter creatures like Darrellor and Urnum and Cockatrice, and then a finisher like Fallen Angel that can just mop up the board and swing
Mhm.
for whatever 13
Yeah,
damage. Thing.
yeah. That card seems awesome here,
Mm.
for sure. Yeah, and I like that we're seeing another deck with uh, wait, what's the card's name? I'm forgetting the name. The one that reanimates stuff. Hell's
Oh, Hell's
Caretaker.
Caretaker, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. I mean, it's just funny that we're seeing more than one deck with that card in it. It is a very cool card.
It's a spicy. It does a cool thing. I mean,
Mhm.
I think it's hamstrung by three factors, right? Like its casting cost is absurd for what it does. It's a 4 mana 1/1.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's the second issue, right? Is the body. It dies to everything basically.
Yeah.
And then, but the worst part of all is that the ability can only be activated during your upkeep. You could do a lot. You would see this all over the place if you could activate it at any time. I think
Mhm.
because
Yeah,
the
because you could
effect.
just you just say use your guy for something when it is getting killed, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can use it to
Mhm.
kind of blank removal. You can always sacrifice the caretaker to itself to
Yeah.
bring back something. Like there are a
I,
lot of amazing tricks that you could use,
mhm.
but that restriction is just awful. It really kills the card.
Yeah, I imagine that that's probably why they put that condition on the card is because they didn't want people doing that. But I would say that's fairly commonplace in like more modern day Magic.
Well,
There's just
sure.
tons of cards that just let you sack stuff at will.
Oh, absolutely. I
Um,
mean, even
yeah.
in antiquities, I think of like the Sage of Latinum ATOG
Mhm.
cycle, like that stuff existed, right?
Mhm.
So
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's not like it was
But
unheralded.
this guy would be too powerful.
The 4 mana 1/1. Ugh.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Um,
Um,
one thing I was going to mention
this,
actually. Go ahead.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to mention that I actually didn't know a lot of these cards came in gold border, uh,
Yeah,
like Aeoli pile in the sideboard. I'm just noticing some of the things that he actually has in gold border. I just didn't know that they were all in gold border. That's awesome.
yeah, I agree. I had no idea about that or Dervish or the
Yeah.
Sacklands, for example. I mean, and that means that they were played. That necessarily means that they were played in championship decks, right?
Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
in the mid '90s or whenever they were, whatever 96 or something.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I guess the one last thing I'll say is I know some people may raise an eyebrow to the illegal icy manipulator using the bone crank art. I don't know. It's gold bordered. It's old school. I don't want to encourage this kind of thing, but it's I'm not gonna
Mhm.
get too worked up about it.
Yeah, yeah. It's honestly like uh, I don't know. There's definitely something to a lot of the Ice Age era cards. I mean, it's kind of right after all. It's the just like the next year, right? And all that stuff was just commonly seen kind of during the era that we're all that we all have nostalgia for. So I don't really. It's not like he's playing some I don't know seventh edition foil or something. It's
Right, exactly. And
so.
I mean, the gold border here, I think the main factor is that the gold border works so well with what he's doing aesthetically.
Mhm,
I mean, the reason I think that we were really firm holding the line on original art is because of it's enforcing an aesthetic, and
mhm,
it's enforcing like a respect for the cards from that era.
mhm.
And I think here it's definitely bending, if not completely breaking the rules, but like in service to the overall aesthetic of the deck. And it's like, there's an argument there.
Yeah,
Um,
for
I
sure.
will not. I'm not going to say, okay, you can do this. I'm definitely like, this is to be clear, don't do this.
Mhm.
But it's like, okay, I get it. I get it.
Yeah, on that topic, actually, I kind of liked that top for the 1.5 thing. He said, "Yeah, you can just use any old bordered copies
Yeah,
because
I
that's
didn't.
kind of his thing, And
It is, but I didn't
um,
see any.
yeah, nobody really did any. But then I realized, oh yeah, I have too many decks built, and so I have too many decks with. I'm just like out of disenchants or whatever, right?
Sure.
And so then I'm like, well, I do have these Ice Age ones. I can actually finally put them in something.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway. This is a cool deck. I do like the aesthetic. I know some people don't like gold border cards, but I actually think they look really good. And the sleeves that he chose, like you mentioned earlier, kind of just tie the whole room together, right?
For sure.
And yeah, it's a very very cool looking deck.
Agree.
So all right. So next up we have Pascal playing a deck called Fly By Surprise. Um,
I like this pile a lot. Pascal's from the Montreal scene.
mm,
I don't know. First of all, I like that it's a mono blue deck. That's cool. I like that there are cards that you don't see really ever. You never see Backfire.
yeah,
You never.
that's true.
You don't see Zephyr Falcon very often. For main deck Psychic Purge is bold. You don't see deserts, at least not. No, I mean, you see deserts in some offshoots like Singleton or 1.5 or whatever. You don't really see them in mainstream 93, 94, just because usually you don't usually have room. Your mana base can't support X number of colorless lands unless they're factory or strip mine or
Mhm.
library, right?
Yeah.
Um, but the other thing that I like in this, I think this comment came up in the voting, was that this is like the kind of deck that you would expect to see. Like, you could conceivably see all these cards like on the playground,
Yeah,
in
yeah,
95 or something, right?
for
Just like
sure.
especially like the white border stuff and just the mix that he has here. It looks old school.
Yeah,
In
definitely.
like an actual like childhood nostalgia kind of way. So what this is doing is that he has only flying creatures, and he's ignoring the things that are happening on the ground, either by putting backfire on ground creatures. He just like
Mhm.
he's not worried about the crackback. He's trying to kind of like just get over you, literally, get some
Yeah,
damage in, and then either burn you out or counter a threat, or just ignore like stuff attacking you. He can just use desert to kind of neutralize or backfire, basically.
mhm.
I think it's kind of neat.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely neat. One thing I recall thinking, you mentioned backfire, and when I first saw this deck picture, my immediate thought was, until now, I think I had seen the art for sale for backfire more times than I had seen anyone play backfire. But now this deck alone has more backfires in it than I've seen posts trying to sell the art for backfire. So anyway, it's just a random thought that I had. But yeah, I mean,
So
yeah. There's cool stuff in here. I kind of the spell blast kind of uh, give me a tiny bit of pause. Like in fact, just if I were building the deck, I might have. I don't know, probably just made them counters. I mean, he has so many blue mana,
he has
right?
enough blue to support. Yeah, he's got, what is that, 13 blue. He can support actual counter spell for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that aside, like Power Sync also supports the plan
Yeah. Yeah.
a little bit better. But yeah, your point
Yeah.
is
Or
well.
even just boomerangs. Like he's got the two boomerangs in the sideboard. Like, you know, you're definitely a tempo deck here, right?
Yeah,
So like just bouncing their, I don't know, bouncing their Serendib and bashing in with all your guys or something, you know,
yeah.
seems fine too. Um,
Um, and I can't let this one go without mentioning the Pendelhaven, which is off color but fantastic.
yeah,
I
well,
mean,
if I didn't know how many votes this one got, I would just assume you put this in here.
just because of the Pendelhaven.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, love to see Pendelhaven in like mono white, mono blue, mono red.
Mhm.
It's always, I don't know, it's the equipment that old school doesn't really have. Like,
Yeah,
say what you will about whatever Ashnod's battle gear or Tanos's weaponry or Zellion sword,
yeah,
but Pendelhaven really puts in the work as what equipment, what we know equipment to be today. Basically,
right.
it has that kind of um, you know that kind of functionality to it, basically. So
Hmm.
love the card.
Also, yeah, I like the one energy flux. I don't know if you mentioned that earlier, but that's, you know, it's just good to have in these sorts of decks, right?
For sure.
It just doesn't hurt you, and it really does a number on a lot of other opponents.
Absolutely.
So. Okay, so let's see. Next up, we have Andy Baccaro playing a deck called Arena.
Mm-hmm.
I so I actually just finally bought an arena not too long ago, so now I own one arena. He owns more than I do, looks like. And yeah, it's a cool card that I actually think. Well, one, I think a lot of people often don't quite realize that it's legal. I think maybe even you and I had this conversation a while ago, just because somebody asked
Oh
somebody
yeah.
asked me like, I forget what we were. Oh, it was when we were doing rotisserie drafts, and they were like, "Oh, can I pick this card? Is it legal?" And I'm like, I mean, according to, you know, whatever rule set it is, you know, like it technically says it, you know. But some of
Yeah.
the rule sets don't actually say it includes those cards,
Yeah,
and
I don't even know if it has it like on the Atlantic like rules page that I even bothered to put the fact that arena and sewers and Nalathnia Dragon are legal.
right,
They
yeah,
are, but like
go for it, yeah.
whatever. you know.
But yeah, I mean, clearly they're here, right? And they were in your tournament, right?
Uh, it's true.
Yeah, and but this card actually does something that you don't get to you like you just don't see a lot of this effect, and
The fight. Yeah.
yeah, and it actually does something really quite cool in decks like this. You know, like he has rook eggs here,
I
right?
love it with Rook Egg. That's freaking
Yeah,
awesome.
like it's just another way to get that to happen. It's sweet with Sengir Vampire,
It's
obviously.
yeah.
I
Actually
mean,
get a counter on your vampire, for the first time in your life. Right?
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Actually, the funny thing about that is like I think I've seen it get counters a handful of times, but it almost always just instantly dies then because like they ran their guy into it because they wanted to bolt it afterwards or
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly.
So I've seen the counter go on, but it's never stayed.
Yeah, I've seen the counter also. It's just never super relevant,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
it's
Like
actually for
when
me.
you're a kid and you're looking at this card, you're like, wow, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Right.
And probably back then when we were all playing super suboptimal Magic, like it probably did get bigger and bigger and bigger. But
Yeah, yeah.
the way that we play the game now, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for me, if I'm ever playing Sangre Vampire and it's going to get the counter, I'm like, well, now my guy's gonna die. I just know he's gonna die. You know, like there's just no way this guy got a counter.
Yeah.
You know, for free. The other cool thing about Arena, and since I bought one not too long ago, I was actually reading the card. It actually taps the creatures involved. So this works really well when you play stuff like Royal Assassin, or Tetsuo Umezawa, right?
Yeah.
So you get that extra bonus, right? Where you can just like, you have like, you know, whatever, their giant guy and your Sedge Troll fight each other and you regen your Sedge Troll and then kill
Just
the
kill
guy
'em.
with your
Yeah.
assassin. Yeah, so you just can do cool stuff like that. Obviously there's a falling star in here and you can tap their guys down with that too. It just kind of,
Yep.
I don't know, there's a lot of like random cool stuff that, you know, you get these, you know, interesting board states and you can probably pull off something that maybe your opponent isn't quite expecting that you can do with the cards that you have, right? Because, you know, if you think about it, you know, outside of white, it's really hard to kill big creatures.
Yeah.
Like, killing and, how do you kill a Juzam? Right? Like, I mean, you could bottle it or something, but like,
with red, it's like impossible.
yeah, exactly. And so, so it's just that kind of stuff that kind of speaks to me here, that you've got just a lot of random things, and the cards are, they're serviceable on their own, but like then you get a couple of them together and then they do this really great thing.
Yeah, and leave it to Andy to find some of those little interactions. I had no idea that Arena tapped both creatures in question. That's flavorful and makes sense. But like obviously the fight mechanic in contemporary Magic is not does not work that way at all. So if you're just thinking that it's like a fight card, yeah, or even tracker, like you have to tap the tracker to use the fight ability, but it doesn't tap the other player's creature. So
right,
that's a really, really key point that like makes a lot of this deck make a lot more sense. If people don't know how Arena actually works. So
yeah,
cool.
And I guess that's most of what I was going to say. I was, when I looked at the deck picture, I was thinking to myself, oh, can you, how does this work with Org? But you can't really like, because it taps your guy. Normally you could like attack with your guy and then use Arena, right? Because it's like already tapped. It just like taps it as part of the resolution of the ability, right? So like you could have him in combat and then Arena, right? But if like you can't attack with the Org, then you can't do that, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think the main thing is that you're using either Arena or Icy or whatever to tap down a blocker.
Yeah.
To enable Org to attack.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's it.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Can Arena target? Can your own, like after you've done that, can Arena still like? Does your creature have to be untapped in order for it to enter the arena? I should probably know that.
One sec. I
don't know the answer to that question.
It says 3 and tap. That's the cost. Tap target creature you control and target creature and opponent of an opponent's choice they control. Those creatures fight each other.
Yeah. Okay, so they don't have to be untapped to participate. So, yeah. All right. That's cool.
Yeah. So yeah, they just get the 2 creatures. I mean, so your opponent, we didn't mention that before, but your opponent picks which one, right? That they want to go into the arena. So you each pick. It's very very thematic card, right? Like you both pick your creature.
You choose your champion.
Exactly. Yeah. And then they go to town on each other, right? Which is kind of funny.
I love it.
Yeah.
All
right. So next up, we have Gabe Farkas playing Pentacle Wisp Pillow Fort, and I like this deck a lot, actually. Dom, when we were playing Singleton, he was really high on Nova Pentacle.
Oh yeah.
He was playing his mono red Singleton deck, and Nova Pentacle is really good there. And then I also had to fight it in a rotisserie draft one time, where Swanta had Nova Pentacle, and it's really hard to deal with, man. Yeah. Just in these creatureless decks, right? Just if you have a guy, or even 2 guys or 3 guys, sometimes you're just like, I can't really attack.
You can't do anything. Yeah, no. This is like a card for super villains in limited or Singleton. It puts or like EDH or something, right? You're playing. If, God forbid, you're playing multiplayer. This card's insane. Yeah, it definitely just puts you in those situations where you're like, wow, this stupid artifact is locking up the entire board state, basically.
Yeah, and then of course, the only creature he's actually playing here is Will-O-The-Wisp, which you can just regenerate when you redirect, the damage to it. If you have that out, it's okay, I guess is what I'm getting at here. And also Simulacrum works with Will-O-The-Wisp as well, right? You can just kind of do the same thing. And just, as the old text of it says, retroactively apply the damage you've taken so far to your Will-O-The-Wisp. It's just a cool deck. I don't know. I like the interaction of the cards is cool. It's got Holy Day in it. You're kind of like doing this like fog thing and then killing them with Underworld Dreams. That's the win con, obviously. But there's not even blue power in this deck.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's just, I don't know. we all kind of know this, I guess, but when you're not playing those cards, or when you can't play those cards or whatever, maybe the format doesn't let you or whatever the case may be, it just opens up the deck building, right? Because we all know you end up with this deck that has like 13 restricted cards in it, and then lands, and then the other stuff that you want to do, and it just those restricted cards take up so much room that it's just sometimes hard to do cool stuff.
Right. I mean, and that frustration, I'm sure, is what led Jonathan King down the path of playing 80 cards, right? And
Exactly.
It's in decks like this where you have so many ideas, you don't want to crowd out like the cool things that you're trying to do. So imposing those restrictions on yourself, like just don't play your ancestral,
Yeah.
Just don't play some of those auto includes, and give your idea some space to breathe.
Yeah. I'd almost want to see maybe, I don't know, more Mazavith. I don't know.
Yeah, I was thinking that myself.
Yeah. But that's just jamming a less cool card into the deck for the sake of, or and then having to cut more interesting things like Eye for an Eye or Holy Day or whatever you might end up having to cut for those things.
Yeah.
But what I feel like I when I looked at this before, I felt confident. I knew what the text for Eye for an Eye was, but I'm just gonna double check what that is.
Yeah, I think it may even modify the effect of like a burn spell that's inbound. Like it causes the effect to do damage both to you and to your opponent simultaneously.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you pick a source, and then when it deals damage the next time this turn, it deals that much to you, like it normally would. And
so it doesn't trigger off the damage. It doesn't trigger off the damage done. It actually modifies the source itself. It's like instead the source deals that much damage to you and to its controller, which is pretty cool. Like you can force draws with this card.
It's true. Yeah.
It doesn't like there's no like this then that like kind of trigger sequence. It's at the same time, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and then you can also simulacrum afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, cool stuff. Some here we're seeing 4 Spirit Links in the board. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
And the cool part about that actually is that when you're dealing with Nova Pentacle, like the things still deal the damage, right? Like you're just redirected, and it's your Spirit Link, right?
Exactly.
So they actually gain life if they try and do anything. It's just kind of cool. Anyhow, okay. Should we move on to the next one?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is cool though.
Yeah, it is a very cool deck. Yeah. There's also love seeing reverse damage in the sideboard. There's just cool cards that you just don't see every day. Some extra fogs and the festivals, that kind of thing.
Exactly. So this one was so Gabe's was I think the 3rd most spicy after the voting. So that brings us up to the 2nd most spicy, which is a deck from Ryan Keach of the Dice City crew.
Oh man, they were really close in votes too.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So Ryan's deck, 2 minutes to midnight. It is a workshops list, but it's using workshops for good and not evil. It's using workshops to enable cards like Armageddon Clock and Bottle of Suleiman, and just cooler creatures like Avian, and maybe you'll see 1 or 2 Tetravis sometimes sneak into a shops list, but let's play the full 4 here. Yeah. I actually played against Ryan in round 7, I think, of the Havenwood battle, and I was X and 2 going into that match, which means that he was 4 and 2
Nice.
going with this deck, which is sweet.
Yeah.
It's fun to be at X and 2 and have to ask your opponent like exactly what some of their cards do. So cop artifacts, like that costs 2 to activate, right? And not like a normal cop or like. So when exactly can I remove a Doom counter from Armageddon Clock? Like how much does it cost? How does that work?
Right.
It was just a delight to see some of these things on the board. And actually, Cop Artifacts did work in for him in one of the games that we played, which was fun, really fun to see.
It's cool. Yeah, I mean, it's yeah, there's definitely a lot of solid cards in the deck, right? Like,
Sure.
he's got Abyss and Moat, and there's some sort of disenchant. So those are kind of, just picking up maybe some of the slack that you might get from trying to cast Bottle of Suleiman, and I think that's totally reasonable to do.
Definitely.
But yeah, the whole circle protection artifact, Bottle of Suleiman thing is a cute little combo. The interesting part though is that you can't let the ability resolve. I feel like we should just say that. So you can't like let it resolve and then try and prevent damage afterwards. You have to like pay the mana in advance and then see what happens with the coin flip, right?
It's a down payment basically that you don't know whether you're going to need it or not. But
exactly, yeah. So you do have to do that. That's not maybe obvious if you're not too familiar with prevention and Magic rules. It's not the most straightforward thing in the world. So. And then I feel like we should maybe just tell everyone what the text of Armageddon Clock is, because that's definitely a card that most people probably don't know the full text of. So, at the beginning of your upkeep, you put a Doom counter on it. At the beginning of your draw step, it deals damage equal to the number of Doom counters on it to each player. And then anyone can activate this last ability of pay 4 mana and remove a Doom counter from Armageddon Clock. But they can only do that during an upkeep step. So it could be, you could pay it on your upkeep step or your opponent's upkeep step whenever. Yep. But this whole upkeep thing, we're seeing a theme today with Hell's Caretaker and this, like, they're just trying to make things, less powerful,
right?
By forcing it to be done in the upkeep.
No, I mean there are a lot of, when you venture into the spice zone and you go deeper and deeper, you find a lot of these cards that are really awesome, but they all involve the upkeep step for a variety of reasons. I don't know. Early Magic just loved the upkeep.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, obviously that card goes really well with the Circle Protection artifacts, right?
Yep.
And honestly, I kind of just like Circle of Protection artifact. Like, think about like.
Can you imagine the Shop's Mirror?
Like, exactly, right? Yeah, I mean, and that doesn't happen too infrequently. So I mean, it's a very good deck, right? And a lot of people play it. So I can just see you've got those main deck, and your opponent's like, really,
Well, and my win condition was the rack, and for half of a game, he was just blanking like 2 or 3 rack damage a turn with Cop Artifacts. I'm like, yeah, okay,
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and in that matchup, it kind of makes up for the fact that like your abysses don't really do anything. So like hopefully you just don't draw the abyss in that, against your Shop's opponent with this deck.
Yeah.
But then you do have this like other just like Haymaker, that and Moat. Those cards are really good against Shops. But yeah, I mean it's a cool deck. I like the Moat Flyers plan, which you don't often see out of a deck with Workshops. Right.
Definitely really good point there. Yep, that shouldn't be overlooked because even the Bottle of Suleiman
makes a flyer,
makes a flying djinn. Yeah.
So it's just and
post board he can audible, like he can pull them out if it wasn't doing any work and bring in stuff like Juggernaut and Trike.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean it's just a neat little deck.
I like this a lot.
One thing I thought was funny is I know that there's some rule sets, or I guess it's not for the rule set, but some tournament organizers will choose to not do the Chaos Orb flipping at the end, but they'll do an Armageddon Clock thing, so he has the edge up, right? Can't he just prevent the damage from the?
Yeah, right.
I'm not sure how that really works,
I always wonder about those, like the Armageddon Clock overtime, right? Because like, does that mean we can just keep paying to remove the Doom counters indefinitely? Like, do you actually mean Armageddon Clock when you say Armageddon Clock, or just like an effect, right?
I think it's just the first 2 abilities.
Yeah, I mean,
my guess.
Mike,
but we'd have to ask someone who actually does it.
You know how much I hate functional errata, Mike.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's the slipperiest of slopes. Right?
Good. Yeah, it's a good idea. I don't know. Anyway, nicely done, Ryan. I enjoyed seeing this and playing against it, and the voters have agreed. This is a great list.
For sure. All right, so next up, we have the top spicy deck.
Yeah, this is Ben Katz's NHL '95,
Right.
featuring featuring the a prize card that he won from the, I believe, the Northern Paladins Fall Open, or which was organized by the Minnesota folks. And he really wanted an excuse to play the hockey player card.
Right.
So this is a deck built around, Northern Paladin and Exorcist and painting it black. Basically, he's got stuff like Touch of Darkness and Deathlace and Sleight of Mind. I think this is like, so I feel like the Slight Knights archetype is now a pretty proven commodity. Like it's a it's like call it a tier 3-ish deck that people like to play. It can win some games. It's fun. This though takes it a step further for sure.
Yeah, sure.
Like playing the creatures that are you're just not playing unless you're playing against mono black, or you're willing to go all in and on Touch of Darkness.
Yeah, I mean it's really cool. So Touch of Darkness does it just till end of turn, right? And is it just a creature?
Till end of turn, but it's any number of creatures.
Any number of creatures. Okay,
yeah,
got it.
which is
That's
really cool.
Yeah, so you do get a different effect than Deathlace. Deathlace can make anything black, right?
Yeah,
So,
I think Deathlace can even make things black on the stack, right?
Yeah, it's a spell or a permanent. Yeah, but yeah, it's really cool. Just you obviously have a bunch of, you've got pro black guys, right? And then you have the both the Northern Paladins and the priests, right? And they both just kill stuff. So you draw this 1 mana removal spell almost, right? Depending on which of them that you're using. But yeah, it's definitely cool, and I like having that total number. You need like a critical mass of like those effects, right? I feel like we've seen these lists in the past, kind of to your earlier point, like where they're kind of just sleight of mind decks.
Yeah.
And like that's good and all.
Or a couple, like even like just having 1 or 2 or 3 like value slights in a deck with a bunch of pro color creatures. Like that's cool and like a normal kind of strategy. But this is another beast entirely, because you're really relying on those color changing cards as your kill spells. Basically, those are your 1-for-1s.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, I mean it's just these decks always just I feel like personally I'm obviously a much spikier player than I am just choosing spicy decks, right? I love looking at the spicy decks, and I feel like I have pretty good intuition for like getting all the details out of them, that kind of stuff. But I just don't often take the opportunity to play them, and so but like just playing this deck looks like it would have just been a ton of fun, right? Because you just get to do all these cool things and just play cards.
Oh, absolutely. And you're dazzling people in game 1 with all your spicy stuff, and then post board apparently you've lulled them into a false sense of security, and then you're going to smash them with like really good efficient beaters.
Yeah, I mean, like what's the sideboard plan here? You just board out like all of the.
You board out your paladins and your whatever.
Yeah,
your
I mean,
exorcists.
Yeah, I imagine the paladins, the exorcists, and then all the laces and the touch of darknesses, right?
Exactly.
And then
bring in Jibs and Darylors and Sarah.
And then probably one sleight of mind, and then you're back to the other, like the earlier iteration of this deck where you've just got some value slights.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe you don't board down all the cards. But.
I mean, lead with your spice, and I mean, whatever. Maybe somebody doesn't get it, or they don't think it's funny, or they're pissing you off, and you can punish them by bringing in all.
Yeah, it's like how some people keep the mind twist in the sideboard just to bring it in against the unworthy,
right?
Or everyone, yeah.
A particularly unsavory foe, gets the horns instead. Right. Perfect. Yeah. Well, congrats, Ben. Ben Katz, the Spice Master of the Havenwood battle.
Awesome.
I can show you this this beautiful card that was altered by Jason Beaupre of Old Order, Old School. This is initiates that he. I love the way he matched the orange and it kind of extended the art. And this is going to be on its way to Ben shortly as a recognition for winning the People's Choice Spice Award for a big event.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. To be honest, just looking at that card, I really wish they just made all the cards have no border.
Yeah, just kind of floating art.
It just looks like, I don't know, there's just something about it, man. And then it's got like the text box is just like a piece of parchment just floating on the, it just looks great.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Well, thanks for doing this, Mike. This was fun.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. So what do you have next in the pipeline?
Events wise, I just today announced the Summer Derby. That's going to start on June 26th, I think, the Friday, with registration opening up just the week before. So as we do every 6 months, it's free to play. It's about a 4 or 5 week commitment for most people. It's 8 matches divided into 2 batches that each take about 11 days or something like that. And it should be pretty. I mean, I don't know. The most recent ones have had, I think last summer we had 144 people. In the wintertime we had like 150 or 160 or so. So I mean, given the rate at which people are playing webcam events, especially now, I expect to see a pretty big field, in a couple dozen countries, and I don't know. I'm really excited about it. And otherwise, I'm going to be doing, playing in some webcam events like Florian's event coming up this Saturday. The Richard Veenman from the Amsterdam scene is doing one on June 6th that I'm getting up at 4 a.m. my time to participate in. It's mostly a Eurocentric, like strict Swedish reprint policy also, gotcha. Which I enjoy playing in from time to time. It's just a fun thing to enforce that aesthetic sometimes. And then of course the Neos monthly series that Jared runs. The season is going to end with June. And then pick up again for a new season starting in August. And I think the June twist is going to be taking regular 93-94 and adding Ice Age, which will be a cool environment that we have only tried a couple times here. And I mean, in Boston, like last year, we had an Ice Age night where we did the same thing. But I'm looking forward to unleashing that. And I know they play a lot of like 95 in Chicago. So maybe we can lean on them for some inspiration.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah. There's a lot of cool things going on right now. Just events galore, and I even like that. We've kind of, due to the critical mass of people, available for games, we are actually able to do these single day events like the Havenwood Battleground. It's just kind of neat because I know we mostly as a community have shied away from that, and it seems like it does actually work in the current environment.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't possible before the current environment, for sure. It's like it's not ultimately like the best thing to sit at your computer for 8 hours, grinding games. But there's demand for it. People want to play in those kinds of events to replace what we've sort of lost for now. So yeah, it's it's not for every weekend, and I'm probably not going to be running another one like that until September, if things are continuing to go the way that they're going for LobsterCon. But it's definitely nice to have the tool in the arsenal for times like this. Yeah,
for sure. All right, well, thanks for joining me once again.
Yeah,
and I'm sure we'll do another one of these very soon.
All right, looking forward to it. See you, Mike.
See you. Thanks.